Corincelli had watched humans for 3 years. He had studied their music, their wars, their strange habit of keeping animals in their homes for no reason other than love. He had read their history books and watched their entertainment broadcasts. He had filled 17 data crystals with observations, and still he did not understand them. He stood now at the observation window of Station Velcara, his scaled hands folded behind his back, his yellow eyes fixed on the small human patrol ship drifting in the distance, the USS Resolute, a modest vessel by galactic standards, nothing special, nothing threatening, and yet something about humans made Corvan uneasy. The Galactic Council had sent him here to find out why. Ambassador, said his assistant, a young Vashan named T.A. There is activity on the human communication channels. Something is happening. Corvan turned from the window and walked to the monitoring station. The screen showed the bridge of the Resolute. He recognized Commander Jake Lawson immediately, tall for a human, with dark hair going gray at the temples, and eyes the color of a storm cloud. Corvan had spoken with him twice before. The man was polite, even friendly, but there was something underneath that friendliness, something hard. Put the audio through, Corvan said. The speakers crackled to life. A woman's voice filled the room. She was reading coordinates, damage reports, casualty estimates. Corin listened, and slowly his scales began to pale. New Helena, a human colony on the edge of explored space. 12,000 civilians, a small defense force. And the Kathrani Dominion had just attacked it without warning. Corin knew. The Kathrani, insectoid creatures with no concept of mercy, they conquered. They consumed, they moved on. The galaxy tolerated them because fighting them was too costly. Everyone looked away. On the screen, Jake Lawson stood perfectly still as Lieutenant Amy Brennan read the reports. His face showed nothing. His body did not move, but Corvan saw something change in his eyes. A light went out and something darker took its place. How many survivors? Jake asked. His voice was quiet. Unknown, sir, Amy said. Communications are jammed, but thermal scans show the colony is still burning. There's a school near the main settlement, 600 children. We don't know if they're stopped. Jake held up his hand. What are our orders? Hold position and await reinforcements. Third Fleet is 18 hours out. Jake nodded slowly. He looked at the floor for a long moment. Then he looked up at his crew. Corin counted 15 humans on the bridge, young faces, scared faces, but not one of them looked away from their commander. Plot a course for New Helena, Jake said. Maximum burn. Amy Brennan did not hesitate. Her fingers moved across the console. Course plotted. Commander, sir, said another officer, a young man with red hair and freckles. Our orders are to hold position. If we go now, we'll arrive alone. We'll be outnumbered at least 5 to 1. I know, Jake said. We could die. I know. The young officer swallowed hard, then he nodded. Setting engines to maximum burn. We'll arrive in 4 hours. Corvan watched in disbelief as the Resolute turned and accelerated toward the danger instead of away from it. He turned to Ta, searching for words. They are going to die, Ta said. They must know this. Why are they going? Corvan had no answer. He turned back to the screen and saw Jake Lawson still standing at the center of the bridge, his hands clasped behind his back, his eyes fixed on the stars ahead. There was no fear in his posture, no hesitation. Corin sat down at his console and began typing a message to the Galactic Council. His clawed fingers trembled slightly. The humans are disobeying their own command structure, he wrote. They are flying toward danger, not away. I have observed humans for 3 years and I still do not understand them. But I am beginning to fear that we have made a serious mistake. We have spent so long trying to calculate whether humans are a threat to the galaxy. We have asked the wrong question. The question is not whether they are dangerous. The question is what happens when something threatens what they love. He paused, looking at the screen again. Amy Brennan was distributing emergency rations to the crew. The young red-haired officer was checking weapon systems. Somewhere in the back of the bridge, a human was humming a soft tune. They sing, Corin wrote, even now flying toward almost certain death. They sing, I do not know what this means, but I intend to find out. He closed the message and sent it. Then he stood and walked to the communications panel. This is Ambassador Corvan Selly of the Vashian Collective, he said, transmitting to the Resolute. I request permission to come aboard. There was a long pause. Then Jake Lawson's voice came through the speakers, calm and curious. Ambassador, this isn't a good time for a diplomatic visit. We're heading into a fight. We probably won't survive. I know, Corin said. That is why I wish to observe. Another pause, longer. This time, you want to watch us die? Corin thought carefully before answering. No, Commander. I want to understand why you are willing to. The silence stretched on. Corin could hear his own heartbeats, all 3 of them, pounding in his chest. Then Jake Lawson laughed. It was a short, tired sound, but there was warmth in it. All right, Ambassador. We'll drop out of Burn long enough for you to shuttle over, but once you're aboard, you stay out of the way. And if things go bad, my crew's safety comes first. Understood, understood. Then welcome to the Resolute. I hope you find what you're looking for. Corin ended the transmission and turned to Ta. His assistant stared at him with wide eyes. You are insane, Ta said. Perhaps, Corvan replied, but the Council sent me to understand humans. I cannot do that from a safe distance. He paused at the door, looking back at the screens, showing the Resolute burning through space toward a battle it could not win. Besides, Ta, I have a feeling that what happens next will be something the galaxy needs to see. Someone should be there to witness it. He left without another word, walking toward the shuttle bay, toward the humans, toward the fire. Behind him on the screens, the USS Resolute flew on, a small ship filled with soft creatures who had decided that today they would rather die than look away. Corin did not understand it, not yet, but as he boarded his shuttle and felt the engines roar to life, he felt something he had not felt in decades. Curiosity and just a little bit of fear, not of the Cathani, of the humans and what they were about to do. The shuttle docked with the Resolute and Corvan stepped into the human ship. Air was warmer than he expected, filled with strange smells. Coffee, the humans called it, sweat, metal, something cooking in a distant kitchen. A young officer met him at the airlock. She had dark skin and tired eyes, and she carried a weapon at her hip. Ambassador, I'm Lieutenant Amy Brennan. The commander asked me to show you around. She paused, looking him up and down. You're really doing this? Coming with us? Yes, she shook her head slowly. All right then, follow me. The ship was smaller than Corin expected. Narrow hallways, low ceilings, Everything built for efficiency, not comfort, and yet as they walked, Corvin saw small signs of life everywhere. Pictures on walls, a child's drawing. Taped to a door, a pair of worn boots. Sitting outside a sleeping quarters. These are personal items, Corvin said. I thought military vessels were supposed to be clean and functional. Amy smiled. But it was a sad smile. There. Reminders. Everyone on the ship has someone waiting for them back home. Parents, children, partners we keep. These things to remember why we do what we do. They pass through the engineering section where a broad-shouldered man was bent over a console typing rapidly. He looked up when they entered and wiped grease from his hands. Ambassador, this is Chief Engineer Danny Vance, Amy said. Danny nodded at Corvin. Welcome aboard. Wish it was under better circumstances. Why are you here? Corvin asked. Question came out before he could stop. You are flying toward death. You know this. Why do you not turn back? Danny was quiet for a moment. He looked at the console, at the engine readings, at the walls around him. Then he looked back at Corvin. My grandfather was a soldier, he said, back on Earth. Long before we reached the stars, he fought in a war, saw terrible things, lost friends, lost parts of himself that never came back. Danny paused, but he used to tell me something, he said. There are things worth dying for, not many things, but some things, protecting people who can't protect themselves. That's one of them, but you do not know those people on New Helena. Doesn't matter. Danny shrugged. There. Someone's family, someone's kids. If we don't go, who will? Corvin had no answer. He followed Amy out of engineering, his mind churning. They walked to the bridge where Jake Lawson stood at the center console watching the stars streak past. He nodded at Corvin. Ambassador, settling in. I am trying to understand, Corvin said. Your engineer speaks of things worth dying for. But your species is so young, so short-lived. Every moment of your life should be precious. Why throw it away for strangers? Jake turned to face him fully. His gray eyes were calm, but there was something burning beneath the surface. Let me show you something. He walked to a screen on the wall and pulled up images, old images, flat photographs from before humans had discovered space travel. This is Earth, Jake said. Before we joined the galactic community, we had our own wars, terrible ones. We did horrible things to each other. Corvin nodded. He had studied human history. The violence had disturbed him. But look at this. Jake changed the image. It showed a burning building, smoke pouring from the windows, and running toward it, not away, were a dozen humans in heavy clothing. Firefighters. Ordinary people who ran into burning buildings to save strangers. Another image, a man in uniform carrying a wounded soldier on his back. This man carried his friend for 30 m through enemy territory. The friend had tried to kill him the week before, during a disagreement. Didn't matter. When the bullets started flying, they were brothers. Another image, a woman shielding children with her body while debris rained down around her. She was bleeding. She did not move. We are a violent species, Jake said quietly. We've done terrible things. We don't deny that, but there's something else in us, Ambassador, something that makes us run toward danger instead of away. Something that makes us shield strangers with our bodies. Something that makes us fight until our last breath for people we've never met. He turned off the screen and faced Corvin. You asked why we don't turn back. The answer is simple. Those children on New Helena, the ones trapped in that school, they're scared. Right now, they're crying for their parents, and somewhere in the back of their minds, they're hoping someone will come to save them. Jake's voice hardened. We're going to be that someone, even if it kills us. Corvin's scales had gone pale. He felt something shifting inside him, something he could not name. The Cathani will not show mercy, he said. They will kill you without hesitation. They can try. Amy stepped forward, holding a data pad. Commander, I have updated casualty projections from New Helena. The Cathani are using civilian structures as shields. They know we won't fire on them if there are people inside, so they're using our morality against us, Jake said. Yes, sir. Jake smiled, but it was not a pleasant smile. Then we go in on the ground, Sergeant Ortiz. A voice crackled over the intercom. A deep voice, rough like gravel. Here, Commander and Incaparist, get your Marines ready. We're doing a drop pod insertion as soon as we arrive. Primary target is the school. Get those kids out. Understood. We'll be ready. Jake turned back to Corvin. You wanted to understand us, Ambassador. Watch carefully. You're about to see what happens when humans decide something matters. The ship shuddered as it accelerated even faster. Alarms began to sound, warning that the engines were being pushed beyond safe limits. No one moved to shut them off. Corvin found a seat in the corner of the bridge and strapped himself in. Around him, humans prepared for battle. They checked weapons, reviewed maps, shared quiet words of encouragement, and through it all they kept looking at those pictures on the walls, the children's drawings, the worn boots, the smiling faces of loved ones. They were not fighting for glory, not for conquest, not for any of the things that drove other species to war. They were fighting for those pictures, for those faces, for the idea that somewhere on New Helena, other families had pictures just like them. Corvin began to understand, and for the first time since he started studying humans, he felt something other than confusion. He felt awe. These soft, fragile, short-lived creatures were flying into the fire, not because they had to, but because they could not imagine doing anything else. The galaxy had been watching humans for decades, trying to figure out if they were dangerous. The galaxy had asked the wrong question. Humans were not dangerous because they loved war. They were dangerous because they loved each other, and Corvin realized with growing certainty that the Cathine had no idea what was coming for them. The Resolute dropped out of faster than light travel, and Corvin saw hell. New Helena burned beneath them. Great pillars of smoke rose from the colony, blotting out the sky. Fires stretched across the landscape like wounds on living flesh, encircling the planet like hungry birds were Cathrani warships. 5 of them, each one larger than the Resolute by a factor of 3. Report, Jake said, his voice steady. 5 enemy vessels, Amy said. 2 cruisers, 2 destroyers, 1 carrier. They've established orbital control. Ground forces are spread throughout the colony. She paused, her voice catching. School is still standing, Commander. Thermal signatures indicate life signs inside, but there are Cathani forces surrounding it. They're using the children as shield, Danny said from his station. If we attack from orbit, we'll kill everyone we're trying to save. Jake nodded slowly. He studied the tactical display, his gray eyes moving across the Screen. Corvin watched him, waiting for the order to retreat, any reasonable. Commander would withdraw, wait for reinforcements, live to fight another day. All hands, Jake said calmly. Battle. Station, charge all weapons, raise shields to maximum. The bridge erupted into motion, officers shouted. Command systems powered up, the hum of the engines deepened into a growl. Commander, Amy said, we're outnumbered 5-1. Our weapons can barely scratch their armor, I know. We're going to die, maybe. Jake looked at her and something passed between them, an understanding, an acceptance, but not before we give those Marines time to reach those kids. Sergeant Ortiz, are your people ready? The gravel voice came over the speakers. Again, ready, Commander. 20 Marines. Full combat gear. We'll get it done or die trying. You might do both, we know. Jake turned to face the view screen. Cathani ships were moving now, turning to face the small human vessel that had dared to enter their killing zone. All right, Jake said, let's show them what we're made of. All ahead, full target. The flagship, the Resolute, surged forward, racing toward the enemy. Formation like a sword thrown at a giant. Corrin gripped his seat, his scales turning white with fear. They're firing. Amy called out. The first impacts shook the ship like an earthquake. Lights flickered, consoles sparked. Somewhere behind him, Corvin heard metal screaming under stress, but the Resolute did not stop. It kept flying forward, weapons blazing, pouring fire into the Cathine flagship. Shields at 60%, Danny reported. Aru power from life support to weapons. Jake ordered, sir. We and LT, Unc and GT, LL run out of air in 20 minutes. Then we better win in 15. The ship shuddered again. A panel exploded near Corvin's head, showering him with sparks. He ducked, covering his eyes, his heart's pounding in terror. When he looked up, he saw Jake still standing at the center of the bridge. Blood ran from a cut on his forehead, but he had not moved, had not flinched. Launch drop pods, Jake ordered, now on the tactical display. Corvin watched 20 small objects detach from the Resolute and plunge toward the planet below. The Marines racing toward the fire. The Cathani tried to intercept them, but the Resolute threw itself into the line of fire, drawing attention, absorbing punishment. Shields are gone, Amy said. Hull breaches on decks 3 and 4. Keep firing, more impacts. More screaming metal. A young officer fell from his station, clutching his arm. Another officer dragged him to safety, then returned to her post without a word, and through it all Jake Lawson stood unmoved, his eyes fixed on the enemy, his voice never rising above that calm, steady tone. The Cathrani flagship broadcast a message. A harsh, clicking voice filled the bridge. Human vessel, you are defeated. Surrender now, and we will grant you quick deaths. Jake smiled. It was not a nice smile. This is Commander Jake Lawson of the USS Resolute, he said. Come and take them. The channel went silent. Then the Cathani began firing again, harder than before. The Resolute groaned. Systems failed. Fires broke out in the corridors. But on the planet below, the drop pods had landed. Sergeant Ben Ortiz hit the ground running. He was a tall man with broad shoulders and a face that had seen too many battles. Behind him, his Marines spread out, weapons ready, moving toward the school with grim determination. Cathrani soldiers blocked their path, insectoid creatures with armored shells and razor-sharp claws. They outnumbered the humans 3-1. Ben did not hesitate. Move forward, he ordered. Whatever it takes. The Marines charged. Gunfire filled the air. Cathani fell. Humans fell. Ben took a hit to his shoulder, spun around, kept fighting. They reached the school door. Ben kicked it in and rushed inside. Building was dark, filled with smoke. Crying children huddled in corners. And few adults, teachers most likely, shielded them with their bodies. It's okay, Ben shouted over the noise of battle. We're here. We're going to get you out. A little girl looked up at him, tears streaming down her face. Are you the good guys? Ben knelt down, wounded shoulder screaming in pain. He smiled at her, the gentlest smile he could manage. Yeah, kid, we're the good guys now. Come on, stay close to me. He lifted her in one arm and fired his weapon with the other. His Marines formed a protective circle around the children and began moving toward the extraction point behind them. The Kathrani regrouped and attacked again. On the Resolute, Jake watched the ground situation on a flickering screen. Half his bridge crew was wounded. His ship was dying around him, but the Marines were moving. The children were alive. Commander, Amy said softly, the Kisani are preparing to fire everything they have. We can't survive. Another volley. Jake looked at her. Then he looked at the screen showing Ben Ortiz carrying children through smoke and fire. How long until the Marines reach the extraction shuttles? 3 minutes, Jake nodded. Then we give them 3 minutes. He turned to face the view screen, watching the Kathrani weapons charging. All hands, he said. It has been an honor serving with you. No one answered, but no one left their posts either. Corvin sat frozen in his seat, watching these strange, impossible creatures prepare to die. Not fleeing, not begging, just standing there facing the end. Because somewhere on the planet below, children were still running towards safety. He did not understand it. He could not understand it, but he knew in that moment that he was witnessing something the galaxy had never seen before. And then the sky tore open. 47 ships emerged from faster than light travel in perfect formation. They filled the sky like an incoming storm, their hulls gleaming with weapons, their engines burning with cold fury. Third Fleet of the United Earth Coalition had arrived. Corrin stared at the view screen, his 3 hearts pounding. The Cathani ships had frozen mid-attack, their weapons still charged, but no longer firing. They had been so focused on destroying the Resolute that they had not seen death coming until it was already upon them. A new voice filled the bridge, a woman's voice, calm and cold as deep space. This is Admiral Lisa Hendress of the Third Fleet. You have attacked our people. You have harmed our children. You have made a very serious mistake. Jake Lawson let out a long breath. For the first time since the battle began, his shoulders relaxed just a little. Admiral, he said, your timing is excellent. We were tracking the Kathrani for weeks, Commander. We knew they would strike. We just needed to know where. A pause. Your courage gave us that and gave us justification in the eyes of the galactic community. The Kathrani attacked first. We are simply responding. Corvin understood. Suddenly, this was not a rescue mission. This was a trap. The humans had been waiting for the Kathrani to reveal themselves, to commit an act of aggression that could not be ignored. And the Resolute had been the bait. Did you know? Corvin asked Jake quietly. Did you know the fleet was coming? Jake glanced at him. there was something in his eyes, something that might have been regret. I hoped, he said, but I wasn't certain. We would have come anyway. Outside, the battle had shifted. The Cathani ships were turning, trying to flee, but the human fleet was faster. Cruisers cut off escape routes. Destroyers moved in precise formations, herding the enemy like wolves herding prey, and at the center of it all, the flagship of the Third Fleet, the Vigilance, advanced with terrible purpose. Admiral Atrix spoke again, her voice broadcast on all frequencies, so every ship, every survivor, every listening station in the sector could hear. All Cathani vessels, you will power down your weapons and surrender immediately. Any attempt to flee or resist will be met with total destruction. You have 10 seconds to comply. The Cathrani did not surrender. They opened fire instead, desperate and wild, lashing out at the closing human ships. It was the last mistake they ever made. The human fleet responded with overwhelming force. Missiles streaked across the void, energy weapons carved through Cathani armor like knives. Through cloth, one enemy ship exploded. Then another. Corvin watched in stunned silence. He had seen battles before. He had studied military tactics from a dozen species, but he had never seen anything like this. The humans fought with a coordination that seemed almost impossible. Every ship knew where every other ship was. Every shot was aimed to support the ship next to it. They moved like a single organism, a predator with 100 limbs tearing into their prey with cold efficiency, and they showed no mercy. The Cathrani carrier tried to launch smaller craft, but human fighters cut them down before they could clear the launch bays. The destroyers tried to ram the human lines, but they were destroyed before they could reach their targets. In less than 5 minutes, 4 of the 5 Cathani ships were burning wrecks. Only the flagship remained. Hive Commander Vrexel attempted to flee. His ship turned, engines flaring, racing toward the edge of the system, racing toward escape. Admiral Atrix's voice came over the channel, quieter now but no less cold. Pursuit group engage. No one escapes. The galaxy needs to see what happens when you touch our people. 3 human cruisers broke formation and gave chase. They were faster than the Cathani ship. They caught it at the edge of the system, surrounding it, weapons trained. Vrexel broadcast one final message. His clicking voice was filled with something Corvin had never heard from a Cathrani before. Fear. We are the Dominion. We are the masters of 100 worlds. You cannot do this. The galaxy will not allow. The transmission cut off as the cruisers opened fire. The Cathani flagship came apart piece by piece, its hull torn open, its crew scattered into the void. When it was over, there was only silence. On the surface of New Helena, Sergeant Ben Ortiz stood at the edge of the extraction zone, watching the sky. The children were safe. Shuttles had taken them to the waiting fleet. Medics were treating the wounded. His shoulder burned. He had lost 3 Marines in the fighting, good people, friends, but 412 children were alive. Because of them, a small figure approached him, a child maybe 6 or 7 years old, not human. Cathrani. Ben looked down at the young creature. It was shaking, its compound eyes wet with something that might have been tears. An orphan, probably, its parents killed in the crossfire. One of his Marines raised a weapon. Sir, Ben shook his head. Lower it. But sir, it's a kid, just a kid. Ben knelt down, ignoring the pain in his shoulder. He looked at the small Kathrani, trying to seem less threatening. Hey, it's okay, you're safe. Now, the young Kathrani made a soft clicking sound. Fear, confusion. Ben reached out slowly, carefully, and touched its shoulder. Come on, let's get you to a medic. Everything's going to be all right. He picked up the Kathrani child and carried it toward the medical station. On the bridge of the Resolute, Jake Lawson watched the footage from the surface. He saw Ben carrying the enemy child, his arms treating it with the same care he had shown the human children. Jake smiled, a real smile this time. That, he said quietly, is why we fight. Corvin heard him. He looked at the screen at the human soldier cradling a child of the species that had just tried to kill him and felt something crack inside his chest. He had thought he understood war. He had thought he understood violence. He had studied both for longer than most humans had been alive, but this was something new, something the galaxy had never seen. Humans did not fight to destroy, they fought to protect, and when the fighting was done, they reached out with the same hands that had held weapons and offered them in peace, even to their enemies, even to the children of those who had tried to kill them. Admiral Atrix appeared on the view screen, her face tired but satisfied. Commander Lawson, you and your crew performed admirably. Return to the fleet for repairs. We'll handle the cleanup. Understood, Admiral. Jake paused. And thank you for coming, Hendricks. Expression softened just slightly. We take care of our own, Commander. Always. Have, always will. She glanced at something off-screen. Besides, I heard there's a very confused alien diplomat aboard your ship. I'm curious to hear what he thinks of all this. Jake looked back at Corvin. Corvin opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. For the first time in his long life, Corvin Ci had nothing to say. Galactic Council chamber was the largest enclosed space Corvin had ever seen. Vast dome of crystalline material filled with floating platforms where representatives of 1,000 species gathered to debate the fate of the galaxy. Today, every platform was full. Every eye, every sensor, every attention was focused on the small reptilian figure standing at the central speaking podium. Corvin Celli had never felt so small in his life. Council Elder Theamer, the senior representative of the Vashan Collective, had introduced him with great ceremony. Corvin was the expert after all, the one who had studied humans for years, the one who had witnessed the Battle of New Helena with his own eyes. The Council wanted answers. They wanted to know if humanity was a threat. They wanted to know if they should be afraid. Corvin looked out at the assembled delegates. He saw the Kathrani representatives huddled in their corner, diminished and humiliated. He saw the great powers of the galaxy, the old empires and the rising nations, all watching him with hungry eyes. They expected him to tell them that humans were dangerous, that they needed to be contained, controlled, perhaps even destroyed before they grew too strong. Corvin took a deep breath and began to speak. I have studied humanity for 3 years, he said. I have read their histories, watched their entertainments, analyzed their wars. I came to this assignment believing that humans were a puzzle to be solved, a threat to be assessed. He paused, gathering his thoughts. I was wrong. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Corvin continued, you have all heard about the Battle of New Helena. You have seen the tactical reports. 5 Kathrani warships destroyed, an entire invasion. Force wiped out. You look at these numbers and you see military power. You see a threat. He shook his head slowly. But you have missed the point entirely. Corin touched a control on the podium, and images appeared in the air. Images he had recorded during the battle. This is Commander Jake Lawson, he said when he received word that New Helena was under attack. His orders were to wait for reinforcements, the smart choice, the safe choice. Instead, he flew directly into danger, outnumbered 5-1 because he could not bear the thought of children dying while he did nothing. Another image, Ben Ortiz, wounded and bleeding, carrying a small girl through smoke and fire. This is Sergeant Ben Ortiz. He led 20 Marines against a force 3 times their size. He was shot, stabbed, burned. He kept fighting. When I asked him, why do you know what he said? Corvin's voice grew quieter, but somehow it carried to every corner of the vast chamber. He said, they're someone's family. If we don't go, who will? Another image, the same Ben Ortiz, after the battle, carrying a Kathrani child, his arms. And this is what happened. After the fighting stopped, the humans had just lost friends, just barely survived an attack that should have killed them all. And when they found an enemy child, orphaned and frightened, they did not harm it. They carried it to safety. They treated its wounds. They protected it. Corin looked directly at the Kathrani representatives. They looked away. You have all spent years trying to determine if humans are dangerous. Corin said, you have asked the wrong question. He stepped away from the podium, walking to the edge of the platform, looking out at the assembled powers of the galaxy. Humans are dangerous, not because they love war, not because they are aggressive or violent, although they can be both of these things. They are dangerous because they love each other. He let that sink in. A human will die for a stranger, cross the galaxy for a child they have never met, burn themselves to ashes if it means the fire does not reach the ones behind them. Another image appeared, Jake Lawson bleeding on the bridge of his dying ship, refusing to retreat. I watched Commander Lawson stand on the bridge of his ship while it fell apart around him. His shields were gone, his weapons were failing. He knew he was about to die. And do you know what he was thinking about? Corvin answered his own question. The children. He was thinking about whether the Marines had reached the school in time, whether the children would be safe. He was willing to die so that strangers could live. He turned back to face the council. This is what makes humanity dangerous, not their weapons, although their weapons are formidable, not their tactics, although their tactics are brilliant. What makes them dangerous is that once you threaten what they love, they will never stop coming. His voice hardened. Never, not if you destroy their ships, not if you burn their worlds, not if you kill every soldier they send against you. Because for everyone that falls, 10 more will rise to take their place, and they will remember, and they will find you. Silence filled the chamber. I have a recommendation for this council, Corin said. Do not make enemies of humanity. Not because they will destroy you, though they will if you push them, but because there is no need. Humanity does not want war. They want peace. They want trade. They want to explore and discover and build. He smiled, and it was the first genuine smile he had allowed himself in a long time. They want to be friends. They want to protect the galaxy, not conquer it. And honestly, I think we could use friends like that. The chamber erupted in noise, delegates shouting, arguing, debating, but Corin noticed something, the fear in their eyes had changed. It was still there, but mixed with something else now. Respect. The vote was held 3 hours later, by a margin of 72%, the Galactic Council approved a formal peace treaty with Earth. Corvin did not stay for the celebrations. He was tired and he had somewhere else to be. 3 weeks later, he stood on the surface of New Helena. The fires were out, the buildings were being rebuilt. Children played in the streets again, their laughter echoing off the new construction, and in the middle of it all, helping to rebuild a schoolhouse, was Commander Jake Lawson. Corvin approached him slowly. Jake looked up, wiped sweat from his forehead, and smiled. Ambassador, didn't expect to see you again. I wanted to thank you, Corin said, for letting me observe, for showing me what your people are capable of. Jake shrugged. We just did what anyone would do. No. Corvin shook his head. You did what no one else would do. That is the difference. That is what I needed to understand. Jake was quiet for a moment. Then he nodded, accepting the compliment. So what happens now? He asked. With the council, with the galaxy now? Corvin looked around at the rebuilding colony, at the humans and aliens working side by side, at the children playing without fear. Now I think the galaxy learns to hope, because they have seen that there are still people willing to run toward the fire instead of away from it. He extended his hand, mimicking the human gesture of friendship. Jake took it and shook it firmly. Welcome to the future, Ambassador, Jake said. I think it's going to be interesting. Corin laughed, a clicking sound that seemed strange coming from his throat, but it felt right. Yes, he said, I believe it will be. He walked away, back toward his ship, back toward a galaxy that was still learning to understand what humanity truly was. He had come to Earth's people looking for answers. He had found something better. He had found hope, and as his ship lifted off, rising above New Helena, he looked down at the small figures still working below, humans and aliens, side by side, rebuilding what war had destroyed. He thought of Jake Lawson, of Ben Ortiz, of all the impossible, stubborn, beautiful humans who had rushed into fire to save strangers. And he knew with absolute certainty that the cosmos would never be the same, because humanity was here now, and they were not going anywhere.